What is up, YouTube? We are back tonight talking fantasy football wide receivers. Last night we finished up the running backs. We didn't do deep sleepers or anything like that, but tonight we're going to be doing wide receivers 28 through 14, 28 through 15, actually. Sorry, we'll give you 14 another time. 28 through 15, we've got wide receivers. Wide receivers are deep. I mean, you could waiver wire your wide receivers probably, but there are tier breaks and there are certain situations that you'd rather have and others that you want to avoid, and that's what we're here to talk about, right? We're here to get all of our feelings on the table about certain guys and who you want to have and who you'd rather avoid, and if you talk through it in any situation in life, if you talk through it, you feel better about it. You feel more prepared going into your drafts or whatever you're trying to get accomplished, right? But that's what we're trying to do here. We're trying to all right, so let's start. Right, let's start with number 28. Okay, at number 28, I have Tyler Lockett, and I know that he had a great year last year. He had something crazy. He had 10 touchdowns. He had 10 touchdowns on a total of 70 targets and 57 receptions. Like, it's just not sustainable. I know Russell Wilson's great. Seattle wants to run the ball. That's all Seattle really wants to do is run the ball. They drafted DK Metcalf. He's a physical freak. Do I think he's going to be a great wide receiver? No. I think he's a freak. He's definitely a nature guy. He's huge. He's cut out of stone. Do I think he's a great route runner? I don't. I think he's a world-class sprinter, bodybuilder at best. I'm not a big DK Metcalf believer. If you guys want to take him later on in drafts, throw a dart at the board, hope for upside, maybe that happens. But Doug Baldwin's not there anymore. Does Tyler Lockett assume that role in the offense? I don't know. I kind of think Tyler Lockett's, at best, maybe he's like Golden Tate's, how they used to use Golden Tate over there. I don't think Tyler Lockett, he's not a bad receiver. But for me, he's a flex receiver. He's not a 1. He's not a 2. For me, he's a flex guy. He gave you what? He gave you 965 yards. That's great. I mean, he caught bombs. There's nothing wrong with that. Gave you a few rushing yards, but I don't think he needs to come up in targets. He needs to be one of those guys that needs to get to like 90 targets, 95 targets, and maybe that does happen. But for right now, with his sample size, and I don't even know if he's really a true number 1, I've got him at 28. Moving on. We're going to 27, guys. At 27, I've got Corey Davis. And this is why I have Corey Davis there. Obviously, he was drafted high, Tennessee. He has big games and then disappears. He's immature, and I'm not talking his personality, just he can't stay consistent. Your best guys stay consistent, and Corey Davis can't. Every time you think he's going to go off, doesn't. Is that all his fault, though? Is Mariota a really good quarterback? Or is he like a college guy who's had a couple, he's done well in the NFL, but he's not really going to be, he's not a franchise quarterback, let's be honest. He's banged up half the time. He runs all over the place. He's a smart guy. He's probably a nice guy. They probably like him in the locker room. But as far as getting return for how high he was drafted, I'm not a Mariota believer. I'm not. In fact, I think Tannehill's probably, for how good in the preseason he's looked, albeit it's a small sample size, Tannehill's looked better. And I think that Tannehill will pick Corey Davis. So I think what did Corey Davis do last year? 112 targets. That's fine. 65 receptions. 891 yards doesn't do it. And he only had 4 touchdowns. Like, you got to do better for me. And again, is that all Corey Davis or some of that Marcus Mariota? I know Tennessee says that they want to run the ball more this year and they want to give Derrick Henry more carries. I don't believe it's going to happen. If they do give him more carries, they're going to get behind early. I mean, look at the division they're in. Right? You got Houston, you've got Indianapolis, and you've got Jacksonville. Okay, so maybe they're able to run the ball a little bit more against a team like Jacksonville. But as far as Houston and Indianapolis, they're gonna jack up the score. So what are you gonna be doing? Hand it off to Derrick Henry when you're down 35-17? You got to throw the ball. And I don't think Mariota's a pure thrower. I think Tannehill's an upgrade, and eventually, they're gonna start asking, the head coach. They're gonna go, hey, is it Mariota or is it Tannehill? I think it's gonna turn out being Tannehill, and that's when Corey Davis' stock will rise a little bit for you guys out there. Maybe, he's probably not a number 2 until that happens. That's a quick prediction, and maybe that. I think Tannehill's going to be the quarterback of Tennessee. Up next, we've got D.D. Westbrook at 26. And this is based primarily on he's not like a number 1. Okay, but he's too athletic to not put on. He doesn't have the speed of it, or obviously because no one does, but he kind of reminds me of a Tyreek Hill. You can't keep an athlete like that off the field. He had 101 targets last year, 66 receptions, 717 yards, and 5 touchdowns. And they're going to find ways to get him involved in the offense. He's got a better quarterback, 100%. He's got Nick Foles there this year. And Foles is a quarterback that likes to get it out of his hands quickly. He likes to know where he's going with the ball, and he likes to put it in he likes quick and tall guys. When he was in Philadelphia, he got it to certain scat backs, and they did the work for him. Or he got the ball to Alshon Jeffrey, who's like 9 foot tall, and he did the work for him. So I feel like D.D. Westbrook has got definitely an upgrade at quarterback, and I think he might go for like 1,000 yards this year. He's going to be in the later rounds. I like upside. I would like D.D. Westbrook and Corey Davis or even Tyler Lockett. I like them in like the 8th round. Lockett's probably going to go before that because people are projecting that this is his breakout season. Maybe it is, or maybe he's just what we've seen. They were begging for Doug Baldwin to come back, and he just doesn't. He can't do it anymore. He's physically beaten up, and they've drafted a wide receiver, so that tells you what they think about Lockett, and that's my opinion. But we'll see what D.D. Westbrook can do in Jacksonville. I think you're going to see him on jet sweeps. You're going to see him in different formations. Just get him the ball, and he's fast. I mean, give it to the fast guy. Let him get you 8 yards and get out of bounds. Don't hurt yourself. And we'll do that for the next hour. Up next, at 25, I've got Courtland Sutton. That's probably a little bit higher than he should be. Flacco's got to throw it to somebody. Emmanuel Sanders is the best wide receiver on that team. He's coming off an ACL. He's just banged up. Sutton's tall. Flacco likes to run the tall wide receivers, guys that can go up and get it. That is Sutton. He's got to make the jump sometime, right? His numbers last year weren't bad. 84 targets, 42 receptions, 704 yards, and 4 touchdowns. And I just think once you get in the red zone, they're just going to loft the ball up to him, and he's going to end up with probably 8 or 9 touchdowns this year. What else are you going to do? What else are you going to do? Unless Emmanuel Sanders comes back and looks exponentially better, that's going to be Flacco's guy. Flacco will end up picking Sanders if he looks that much better. But that's probably a mid-season prediction, and not so much for Courtland Sutton to start the year off. Denver's going to have to produce points. If you're in a division with teams that can put up a lot of points, you might want to run the ball early, but you're eventually going to throw the ball. Denver's in a division with, obviously, Kansas City, but San Diego to keep up with Got to keep up with the Joneses somehow. And if Kansas City's going to drop 42, and San Diego's going to drop 33, and Oakland's somewhere in the middle there, you have no choice but to chuck the football. And that's where I think, they end up. They end up having to chuck the football. And it might be garbage points that Sutton ends up with. They still count. If you lose 42-24, and Sutton ends up with 100 receiving yards, you still got 100 receiving yards, whether it's a loss or whether it's not. At 24, I've got Larry Fitzgerald. I know he's 1 million years old. He's 1,000,001. Argue that he's older, right? But Larry Fitzgerald had 112 targets last year and 69 receptions from a quarterback that currently is having trouble beating out Ryan Fitzpatrick in Miami by the name of Josh Rosen. Okay, he's 734 yards and 6 touchdowns. Now, we all know, you've been hearing the off-season chatter out of Arizona that Kyler Murray and Cliff Kingsbury are going to set the league on fire offensively. Maybe that happens. But they definitely want to move the ball quickly. Okay, in that Texas Tech style offense, Murray's going to be tough to sack. And Fitzgerald, here's the thing about Fitzgerald. And I know everybody loves Christian Kirk, and he's a bit of he's a younger talent. But Arizona's offensive line was not good last year. And maybe they got a little bit better. But Larry Fitzgerald, with all that experience, knows how to work his way back to the quarterback, in my opinion, probably a little better than Christian Kirk. So I think where you're able to draft Fitzgerald late in drafts, he's going to be more valuable than Christian Kirk. I think that they're both going to have excellent seasons. But if you're asking me to rank one over the other, I'll take Fitzgerald because he's been in so many poor situations that he knows how to get himself out of. And by the way, Larry Fitzgerald will be your third wide receiver, or he'll be a bench guy and a fill-in guy. So if he's hot, right? If Arizona's playing well, who's to say he can't go for 1,000 yards and 7 touchdowns? I like Larry Fitzgerald, and I think he's, it's been a raw deal down there with quarterbacks lately. The desert has dried up with quarterbacks. So hopefully Kyler Murray brings some life down there, so they can enjoy football again. And I got Larry Fitzgerald 24. I think he's going to be an excellent late, 9th round guy. He might start creeping up into the 7th, maybe the 8th, but nobody likes him because he's old. So everybody's going to take Christian Kirk, and you're probably going to have the same, if not better, value with Larry Fitzgerald, in my opinion. 23, Sterling Shepard, because why not? Right? He's a blah number 2 wide receiver. I don't love him. But someone's got to catch the ball in New York. And I know he got dinged up or whatever. Or he's having an ankle issue. He's going to play. Sterling Shepard puts up decent numbers. Right, last year with Odell Beckham. He had 107 targets, 66 receptions, 838 yards, and 4 touchdowns. That was with Odell Beckham. So you got to assume the targets are going to go up. He'll probably be ready for week 1. Take the ankle up. He'll move out there. He'll play. Golden Tate's going to miss 4 weeks. And New York throws the ball. No matter how bad Eli Manning is, how many interceptions he decides to throw, New York throws the ball. So he's going to throw the ball, and he's got 28 touchdowns, 27 touchdowns, 15 interceptions, but they're still going to throw it. So, what are you going to do? If Eli Manning's going to throw, someone's got to catch the ball. And Sterling Shepard is getting 107 targets with Odell Beckham there. His targets are probably going to go up. All this talk about Evan Ingram is going to be a great tight end this year. He might be. He might be much better. But he's not going to catch 200 balls. So what Jake Morgan, in a 10-team 0.5 PPR league. Would you trade my 6th and 26th pick for 3rd and 38th? I wouldn't. No, not at all. Because here's why. All right, so you're drafting 6th. Okay, so in my draft, I'm drafting 7th. So I'm relatively in the same, in the same ballpark you're in, Jake. All right, and if you think about it in these terms, right? So you're at the 6th, and then you're in a 10 team, right? So your value is going to be much higher. I'm in a 12 team. Okay, so 3rd and 38th. Like, do you really think that the top 4 players that are going to be drafted are going to be running backs? Okay, and I've actually started considering this a little bit lately. Okay, if the top 4 guys are running backs, obviously you have a shot at wide receiver. Okay, your Adams, your Julio Jones, your DeAndre Hopkins, those guys. Okay, but I've actually started considering this. Why not take Todd Gurley in the 6th or 7th spot, and then duct tape your, if Todd's going to be injured, sometimes that's fine. But hear me out. He's a carry and a touch machine. Okay, he's been getting touches and carries his whole career. But let's say his volume comes down. Let's talk about this for 1 second, right? So let's say Todd Gurley's volume does come down. So last year, Todd Gurley's volume was 256 rushing attempts, and he had 81 targets. My opinion is that the Rams get down in the red zone, and he's going to be the red zone guy, right? So let's say they only use him. He's not a huge yard guy. Let's say he's not a huge yard guy. He's just a huge touchdown guy again. Could he be at Melvin Gordon's production? So Melvin Gordon last year gave you 175 attempts, 865 yards. We said he's not going to be a yards guy, right? McVay gets you out in space. So Melvin Gordon had 490 receiving yards last year. Todd Gurley had 580. That's a little bit of a difference, right? Melvin Gordon had 14 touchdowns. Todd Gurley had 21. So what if Todd Gurley goes from 21 down to like 15? That's great value at the 6th pick, right? And then, okay, so now you have the 26th pick, right? So that's what that's in your 3rd round, correct? Right. So now you have Todd Gurley. You're going to draft a wide receiver coming around, and then your 26th pick, you could draft another running back. Kerryon Johnson if he's there. Let's see what other David Montgomery. I think he's going to be a stud. I wouldn't be afraid of Sony Michel. That might be a little early. Nick Chubb is sliding. I don't know why people just don't like him. I like Gurley. I just may like DJ. Okay, that's great. David Johnson, you may like more. Here's the problem with David Johnson is that Matthew Berry, he's the ESPN analyst. He's talking him up. And the other issue is Ezekiel Elliott and Melvin Gordon. Because Ezekiel Elliott's holdout and Melvin Gordon's obvious holdout, David Johnson's moving up. So your top 4 running backs currently, right, are Saquon Barkley. I like Kamara better than Christian McCaffrey, so I would have Kamara too, right? And then I would have Christian McCaffrey at 3. And guess what? David Johnson's at 4. And the other thing that hurts you too is that ESPN today has changed his total number of points for the year. He started off a month or so ago at like 217, and you could see the upside above that. I believe he's marked down now at like 240. So the fact of the matter is that I don't think David Johnson, if this Melvin Gordon, Ezekiel Elliott thing doesn't, figure itself out, I don't think you're going to see David Johnson. So by the time you get I don't know, whoever's going to take somebody 5th, you'll probably see Hopkins come off 5th, right? And then what? And then you're going to be looking at wide receivers, and you're going to be looking at running backs. I mean, I'm not comfortable with Connor there. I'm not comfortable with Mixon there. I'm just not comfortable with those guys there. And I think Gurley's in the best offensive, positioning, and I really do believe that you're going to see weeks where he's injured, right? Where he's not going to play or the Rams aren't going to give you an injury report on him, and it's going to be a tough Sunday morning. But you're going to have those games where he's going to have 60 yards and 3 touchdowns. So I'm starting to warm on the fact that if I take Gurley in the first round and then I take a wide receiver borderline 1 in the second round, right, by the time I get to the third, fourth, and fifth round are all going to be running backs for me. Whether it's going to be, I have to reach on a couple guys, Sony Michel or Miles Sanders or somebody like that. Who else would I be happy with if they slid? Let's look for you here real quick. Lamar Miller is a great flex late. If you had to start Lamar Miller, right, because Todd Gurley was hurt, there's nothing wrong with that. That's not going to really hurt you. All right, you like to reach A to see how I felt about it. You really have to start, moving yourself in certain directions to see if you really can deal with and put up with that. And I think Gurley at 6 and Gurley at 7, if I really believe that he's going to put up Melvin Gordon-like numbers, then he's going to be worth the touchdowns. Gives me 14 touchdowns and a total of 900 yards. That's fine. It's not. It's probably just as good as one of those wide receiver returns. It's whether or not I want to deal with having that injury issue all year. But if I stack 4 more running backs that have great capability on top of them, it's what I have to do, because I don't want to draft a wide receiver that's going to put up numbers, which is fine, but then not have a great running back. I think the wide receiver it's much more loaded. If I drafted, let's say I drafted Todd Gurley, right? And then it comes around and the best wide receiver I have left in round 2 is Antonio Brown. I'm okay with Antonio Brown. Everybody wants to talk about how great Ben Roethlisberger is as a quarterback. It's like, dude, that guy comes into camp and looks 3 months pregnant. I'll take Derek Carr's work ethic at least. And if he's willing to chuck the ball to Antonio Brown, who got 15 touchdowns last year, by the way, you don't think he's worth 10 this year in another 1,100-yard season? Like, the one thing Antonio Brown is 2 things. He knows the history of football, and he's arrogant. Okay? Do you think he knows that Jerry Rice played for the Oakland Raiders later on in his career? Yeah, he probably does. So I would take Antonio Brown, and then I would take, I'd be happy with another running back that fell to me. That I'm comfortable doing things like that because the ceiling is so high. Floor is the floor for everybody. Honestly, his rushing style and the offense that they have, Saquon Barkley can go out and get hurt first week. Then what happens? Then what happens? You can plan for anything. Dalvin Cook's injury prone. People are really high on Dalvin Cook. Leonard Fournette, they're all injury prone. They've all been banged up. You got a degenerative knee, but you have a great organization and an excellent offense. And I'm starting to warm up to the fact that I would probably take Todd Gurley. Let's get back to wide receivers. At 22, I've got Golden Tate. I know he's suspended for those 4 games, but Eli's been throwing the ball really short late the past couple seasons. Okay. I kind of feel like that's going to continue. He loves a slot wide receiver. And everywhere Golden Tate goes, he just catches the ball, right? But his statistics last season, and he was all over the place once again, right? 113 targets, 74 receptions. He only had 4 touchdowns, but if you're looking for a guy that's going to give you 60 yards a week, that's Golden Tate. And he's kind of the Julian Edelman of every offense. So I like Golden Tate at 22. I know nobody likes you could flip those Giants wide receivers if you wanted, but the fact of the matter is the Giants throw the football, and they're going to have to. They're going to have to. Like, Dallas is planning on throwing more. Philadelphia is planning on throwing more. Washington went out and got a quarterback in the draft. maybe they'll throw more, but the Giants are going to have to throw, and they always like to. Eli Manning's going to throw the football, and there's going to be yards to be had. And I like those guys at 22 and respectively 23 because of their value in drafts. It's like you can get Sterling Shepard in the 9th round. Nobody wants him. You can get Golden Tate in like the 12th round. And after those 4 weeks worth of suspension, he's going to get yards. So, I mean, if they were going the 5th and 6th, even the 4th round, I wouldn't want those guys. But I will take them. I will certainly take them where they're being drafted. They're going to fall to you. Like, Sterling Shepard's the number 1 wide receiver playing for the New York Giants. That's a fact. Going in like the 8th round. I'll take that. Up at 21, and I should have had him higher based on, his current injury riddled teammate. But I got at 21, I've got Tyler Boyd. Tyler Boyd, I don't know if he's a number 1. I know he's an excellent number 2. Okay, he's a good wide receiver. His numbers were 108 targets, 76 receptions. He did go over 1,000 yards, and he had 7 touchdowns. And now with this A.J. Green thing, that's probably going to linger throughout the season because that's what A.J. Green likes to do. I feel like Andy Dalton's probably going to start leaning on the likes of Tyler Boyd, and I could see Joe Mixon's catches going up. That's how I feel. I think Joe Mixon can have a phenomenal year. The new coach was one of the old Rams assistants, so he's probably going to be putting some of their same offense, get Mixon in space and get Boyd in certain situations. So I have him locked and loaded at 21. He could end up inside the top 15. It's just tough. There's a lot of talent out there. We got Tyler Boyd at 21. At 20, I've got Calvin Ridley. And Calvin Ridley, for the greater part of the season, he was just the wide receiver opposite of Julio Jones. He was just another wide receiver drafted, out of Alabama. And then he decided that he was going to get 821 receiving yards and 10 touchdowns. He did become a favorite of Matt Ryan. Now, Julio Jones is his number 1 guy. But if you have a number 2 like Calvin Ridley, I mean, that you're giving defenses fits. The Atlanta Falcons get back Devontae Freeman, right, who's an excellent pass catcher, tough running back. He's caught the injury bug of late. I mean, they still have Mohamed Sanu. Like, I have Ridley at 20 based on how athletic and how he finds a way to get open. He's an excellent route runner, and Matt Ryan obviously has no problem getting him the ball in certain spots. 10 touchdowns is a lot for a rookie. That didn't happen by accident, and it wasn't like Julio wasn't there. Julio, some guys are yards guys. Some guys are touchdown guys. And if you get both of those, if you could combine that, you'd have the perfect wide receiver. And Julio Jones is more of a yards guy. He joked the other day, he said he was going to go for 3,000 yards this year. That's probably too high, but he had 1,600 last year. He could be a 2,000-yard receiver. Touchdowns, I don't know, but he gets yards. But Calvin Ridley is my number 20. I think he gives you another 8 touchdowns. Maybe it goes up on the yards a little bit. I think he's a touchdown guy. I really do. I think he's got a nose. At 19, I've got DJ Moore of the Carolina Panthers. And DJ Moore came on late last year. And again, he's another yards guy. But he's a multifaceted wide receiver. And by that I mean, he only gave you 2 touchdowns, gave you 788 yards receiving. But he gave you 172 on the ground. And I think Carolina is going to continue to do that. Run him in jet sweeps, end arounds, pitch him the ball. He's almost like a second running back. He can find the holes. He kind of reminds me of Steve Smith a bit. Remember Steve Smith, just kind of the do-it-you-all, and you don't think he's going to catch the ball, and he caught it over another great cornerback once again. So he kind of reminds me, that's the blueprint, I believe. I think DJ Moore's got guts. I think he's a tough wide receiver, and that 2 touchdowns will probably go up to 6 or 7. But the yards are really going to go up. When they implemented him in the offense last year, he was giving you like at 14 to 17 point weeks. He was really starting to come into his own, and talent rises to the top. And he's definitely talented, and they want him to be a big part of their offense. DJ Moore at 19, I've seen him be going in like a 4th and 5th round. I think he's going to be excellent. And I think he's got a chance to take a huge jump this year. At 18, take a sip of water real quick. At 18, I've got Jarvis Landry. And I'm sure you'll want to scream at me for having that high, because Odell Beckham's there now, and all Baker Mayfield's going to do is drop back in the pocket and throw the ball to Odell every single play. And that's not going to happen. Okay, Odell Beckham catches bombs. He's not a target machine. He never has been. Jarvis Landry is going to give you probably the same production that Jarvis Landry always gave you. Like, you do know that these 2 wide receivers played together at LSU, right? And you do know that Jarvis Landry got the most balls thrown to him. He never got the most yards. Odell Beckham's the touchdown guy. Jarvis Landry's the yards guy. Right? Jarvis Landry, last year he had 149 targets and 81 receptions, 976 yards, total of 5 touchdowns, rushing and receiving. I think he threw 1 or 2 as well. Okay, so Jarvis Landry, he's a gadget guy. He could do a lot of things. Okay, so targets. 149. They'll probably come down. Okay, but they'll probably be at 120, 115, and he's going to have less pressure on him to be the number 1, because he's probably not a number 1. In all reality, Cleveland probably bought Jarvis Landry there because he was going to be the greatest sales pitch to get Odell Beckham there. That's most likely the truth. So what they did was they paid him, right? They paid him to be a good locker room guy, work his tail off, and bring his good friend there. And it was worth the money because they were able to do it. Right? If you just think that Jarvis Landry is just going to be discounted as nothing, he's not. He's the number 2, but he's probably going to end up with more receptions, probably. He'll probably end up with 90 receptions. He'll still give you the yards, and you'll probably have the same amount of touchdowns. I don't see any regression. I see absolutely none. I see the absolute same season that he gave you a year ago, maybe a couple extra touchdowns, because Beckham's going to demand so much attention. He's got to. He's going to have 2 guys on him at all times. Well, who's getting the ball then? Duke Johnson's gone. Chubb's an okay receiver. Higgins is getting all them. Callaway? No, it's going to be Landry. That's the other thing, too. They're friends. And the biggest mouth in that locker room, besides Baker Mayfield, might be Odell Beckham Jr. He wants Landry to succeed with him, not against him. Jarvis Landry at 18. At 17, I've got Kenny Golladay. Last year, he had a good year. Matt Stafford, it was rumored that he had injuries. He had a lower back strain issue, and he just wasn't the quarterback that he was prior years. I know Detroit wants to run the ball more to preserve his career, and also they're a cold climate team, so they want to run the ball as much as they can. All that being said, Golladay was the number 1. He had 119 targets. He's a big target, too. Tall wide receiver. He's 70 total receptions. He went over 1,000 yards, and he gave you 5 touchdowns, which is fine. It's not – look, Detroit's been spoiled for years with Calvin Johnson. Calvin Johnson is no longer there, and they're looking for the next big thing. Kenny Golladay is a fine wide receiver, Do I think he has the opportunity to break into the top 10 in wide receivers? No. He could finish 13th, maybe 12th, barring, other unforeseen circumstances. He's a fine wide receiver. I don't want him as my number one. I'd be happy with him as my number two. So if you took, let's say, first round, you take Julio Jones or DeAndre Hopkins, right? And then you want to shore up your running backs. So round 2, running back. Round 3, running back. Round 4, running back. Or tight end if you wanted Kelsey or something like that. Right? Round 5, you take Kenny Galladay. Now you have Galladay paired with a top tier, DeAndre Hopkins or something like that. I'd be okay with that. I think he's going to come up a little bit more this year with the health of Stafford, obviously. Detroit's going to be just fine. Look at their coach is a genius. He is. Matt Patricia is what is he? He's in that aerospace, or he's a physics master. The dude he's a genius. He is. There's a reason why he was hired and kept and retained in New England for so long. Matt Patricia is going to find a way to get his tall wide receiver at the ball. It's not brain surgery. 16, I've got Keenan Allen. I'm going to give you my only concern about Keenan Allen right up front. Keenan Allen starts slow every year. He just does. Keenan Allen, you'll draft him like he's a number one, and he finishes the season looking like a number one. Right here are his stats. 136 targets, 97 total receptions, 1,196 yards. That's fine, right? 6 touchdowns. He's a yards guy. He's not a touchdown guy. The one guy that I haven't mentioned in so far in all this, and he's kind of outside looking now, he could take a huge leap this year, is Mike Williams. Mike Williams is a tall touchdown guy. It's not a yards guy. So that's what you want to be thinking about when you're pairing some of these receivers together. Now, if you have a yards guy, maybe you want to get a touchdown guy. And I know it sounds crazy that, well, can't they just go up and touch? Sometimes they're just yards guys. They're happy to get the yards, and the other guy gets the touchdown. Keenan Allen is a slow starter. In fact, he's going to be non-existent in like the first half of the year. And then he's going to start winning you weeks. So like let's say you did this. Let's say last year, because Adam Thielen was on fire to start the year. Keenan Allen wasn't. He's a slow starter. But Adam Thielen tailed off. Just when Keenan Allen was picking up, if you had those two wide receivers, they would almost act as, in a tandem. They'd fit nicely together. Now, are you going to be able to predict that? Not all the time. But I don't think Keenan Allen's a fast starter, and he's always been that way. So if you draft him, I wouldn't draft him as my number one, because you're going to want to take your remote and chuck it through your TV when he gets 4 catches for 32 yards the first 3 weeks, and he's killing you in seasons. He'll pick it up late, but when your team's 2-5 already, it's over. Right? You're constantly clawing and scratching at the waiver wire. You don't want that. I would leave Keenan Allen. I'd leave him and his beard for somebody else. Now, 15, we'll round out this show. At 15, I have Brandon Cooks on one of the best offenses in the NFL. That's hard to argue. The Rams can obviously, they're running back at 21 touchdowns. They had 2 wide receivers last year that went over 1,000 yards. Cooper Kupp would have if he stayed healthy. Yeah, that was an unfortunate and gruesome situation. But Brandon Cooks does this every year. Okay, he's not a number one either to me. I know he puts up number one numbers, but he's a little inconsistent. But 117 targets, 80 receptions. That's what he does every single year. And he'll always do that. He'll go 1,200 yards. Okay, it's like to run those jet sweeps. But he's a 5-6 touchdown guy. He's a yards guy. Okay, you have to be able to differentiate, distinguish yards guys from touchdown guys, and they show themselves pretty evenly. You know, Antonio Brown, yeah, he'll give you yards, but he's mainly a touchdown guy. He likes to. He's that arrogant. He likes to do the dances. Odell Beckham Jr., touchdown guy, not so much of a yards guy. You know, but we'll be talking about them a little bit more on our next wide receiver show. We'll see you back here in just a few days. Guys, subscribe to the channel, right? I'll answer all your questions, I promise you, right? Jake, good luck in your draft. Don't make that trade. It's not worth it. The third pick is not worth it. It's not enough points. All right? Subscribe to the channel, guys. I'll keep giving you fantasy information. We'll be here to talk about sports whenever you want.